Good morning. I'd like to call to order the November 18th, 2021 meeting of the RTC Board of Commissioners. MJ, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chairman. Members of the Commission, your first item is to conduct your first citizens participation period.
Thank you. This is the first time set aside for public comment. This time is limited to comments on items included on the agenda. Those wishing to speak on posted agenda items, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone and provide your comment and state your name for the record. Seeing no one, additionally, with the COVID-19 cases in Clark County, the RTC will temporarily accept public comment via email to be read aloud by staff into the record. Are there any public comments to be read by staff?
Thank you, Chairwoman March. This is Mayor Dubois for the record. We do not have any public comments for this period.
Thank you. And if there's no other public comments, we'll go ahead and move forward to the next item.
Thank you, Chairman. The next item is to approve your agenda. Your agenda is in order, ready for your approval.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about the agenda? Anything someone wants to pull? Or can we have a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. And that motion carries. Thank you, MJ.
Thanks, Chairman. The next item is to receive the CEO report. And to start off the CEO report, I wanted to highlight the exciting news from this week. President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure bill into law on Monday, and we are grateful to our federal delegation for all of their help in supporting this effort. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act delivers historic funding for our nation's transportation infrastructure and creates good-paying jobs for our community that will grow and diversify Nevada's economy. Although Southern Nevada's long-term transportation funding challenges still need to be addressed, this bill provides certainty in transportation planning with funding levels increased and authorized for 5 years. The bill also delivers new competitive grant funding opportunities that will allow us to work with our regional partners to aggressively compete and pursue programs and services that promote mobility, technology, safety, and electrification. Based on historical apportionment of federal formula funds, we anticipate that RTC will receive a total of $437 million in roadway and planning funding over the next 5 years. And this is important to note, of which $77 million is new funding. The majority of this new funding will be used for projects that address safety, congestion, and improvements to air quality, with a portion of funding dedicated to regional planning efforts. We're also going to utilize the funds to deploy innovative traffic management technologies and construct additional bike and pedestrian infrastructure improvements. With respect to transit, we expect to receive a total of $311 million in formula funds for transit over the next 5 years. And then again, very important to note, it's $80 million is identified as new funding. These funds will be used to enhance our paratransit, fixed route, and on-demand services, increase frequencies, and accelerate our transition to a zero-emission fleet. So the competitive grant opportunities available for public transit in the infrastructure bill include key priorities that focus on safety for transit workers and riders, fleet and transit infrastructure modernization, climate action, which includes a transition to, again, a zero-emission fleet, and then ensuring we are providing equitable service for communities that have limited access to public transit. And so that's been spelled and identified that the competitive grant opportunities will really focus on those 4 areas. So we've begun identifying potential projects that will be eligible for new and existing competitive grant programs. These programs total more than $100 billion, and that includes all of the opportunities, not just specific to what we do here at the RTC. We're actually going to look forward to working with all of your staff. We're going to collaborate with all the local jurisdictions, nonprofits, and community partners on potential grant opportunities. And then there's our in the middle is our director of the MPO, Andrew Kelman, and Danny Pazikas. And this is a big deal in the planning world. I know, Mayor, you're aware of this. The RTC was honored to receive the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or AMPO, 2021 National Award for Excellence in MPO Coordination and Partnership for Onboard, our community's future mobility plan. The Onboard Plan, which provides a framework for a shared vision of Southern Nevada's mobility future, was developed through a combination of technical analysis and input from stakeholders, elected officials, and Southern Nevada residents. The plan includes investments and strategies designed to diversify and expand regional transportation opportunities and to make it easy for people to get to work, school, medical appointments, and social activities. So the AMPO Award recognizes high achievements for both MPOs and individuals and honors outstanding efforts in coordination and partnership, and they are really good at that, by the way, and recognizes strong collaborative projects and practices among MPOs, transit agencies, and departments of transportation. I don't know, is Andrew here? Danny is. Danny Fazekas. Danny, stand up. There he is. Yeah, really proud of this. Really proud of the team. And then the AMP Award couldn't have come at a better time because we are now launching the next phase of Onboard. We're coming back to our community to reaffirm that our shared vision is still aligned with their mobility needs. So through a brief survey, we're asking residents to rank the priorities identified in the Onboard plan. From now through January 20th, we will be at events nearly every single day to gather feedback. This effort will help us re-engage our community post-pandemic, and the feedback will help us plan how we invest the funding available to us. So the survey is available now. You can go to onboardsnv.com, or you can scan the QR code that you see there. We want to hear from as many residents as possible to ensure we are meeting our community's mobility needs. And I have to give a big shout out to Angela Castro and her team because they are all over this. This is a lot of work, and we appreciate their efforts.
Thank you.
And that concludes your CEO report.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for MJ? You know, I just want to say how excited we are to see these new resources coming into our community, and hopefully we'll be able to make significant impacts in many areas in the community as well. And certainly receiving this award, the AMPO award, is another great achievement.
Yeah.
It really reflects the good planning that goes on in this agency and across the valley. And of course, public input through the onboard process. But I especially want to compliment you on your new role with APTA, that you're on the board of APTA, and that's a significant accomplishment for the RTC and will help us to really influence public policy in the future. So I thank you for your leadership and your willingness to serve in that role.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very excited on behalf of our agency that we'll have this national input. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, MJ, and I guess Jeff, the next item?
Yep, that's right. The next item is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's Report, and Mr. Jeff LaRue is here today to do that.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. I'm Jeff LaRue, Deputy Director of Operations and Maintenance at NDOT. I'm pleased to represent the department today and provide the director's report to you. Starting with safety, as a state, we are now having the worst year in a decade in traffic fatalities. If that wasn't alarming enough, we're not only on track for the deadliest year in a decade, but earlier this month we passed the total year-end fatalities of the deadliest 2 years in the past decade. And that's with a month and a half left in 2021. As of October 31st, 315 lives were lost on Nevada roadways, and again, we still have the rest of November and December to go. Here in Clark County, we've seen a jump in 24% in traffic fatalities. Pedestrian fatalities are slightly lower than this time last year, but tragically, there still have been 51 pedestrian fatalities this year. Motorcyclist fatalities are up 47%, bicyclist fatalities are up 300%, and scooter or moped fatalities are up a staggering 500% from this time last year. Speed and impairment are again to blame for the majority of the fatal crashes. Both speed and impairment were factors in the deadly crash I'm about to share with you right now. On Saturday, November 6th, in the Southwest Valley, a 30-year-old passenger in a Tesla died after the vehicle he was riding in became airborne and hit a wall. The passenger who died, Ryan Pattinson, was sitting in the Tesla's backseat and was thrown from the car in the crash. He died at the scene. Officials say the Tesla's driver, who is reportedly driving at an excessive rate of speed, is suspected of DUI and reckless driving. As you've likely heard, and MJ just spoke to it a little bit, the recently approved Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has some parts specifically related to safety and restores flexibility to fund non-infrastructure activities and behavioral safety projects, such as educational campaigns about traffic safety and enforcement activities that allows the state to spend up to 10% of its highway safety improvement program funding on these projects. As speed and impairment continue to be the top cause of fatal crashes on Nevada roads, we're pleased that the newly passed bill will again allow us flexibility to spend some of our safety funding toward behavioral programs. Here's a bit more about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Bill Act. On Monday, President Biden signed the long-awaited $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The bill is the largest long-term investment in our infrastructure in generations and includes over $2.5 billion in guaranteed road and bridge formula dollars for Nevada. Specifically for NDOT, our annual allocation from the Highway Trust Fund would jump from our current fiscal year 2021 number of $397.5 million to $481 million, a 21% increase or about $83 million. And it grows steadily from there throughout the 5-year life of the bill. When the legislation expires after fiscal year 2026, Nevada will be receiving $520.7 million annually, which is a 31% increase over fiscal 2021 funding. The bill also provides $47 billion nationally to improve the resiliency of our infrastructure and support communities' recovery from disaster. The bill is the largest investment in the resilience of the physical and natural systems in American history. It includes the first ever transportation-specific resilience program in the U.S. Department of Transportation called PROTECT, which stands for Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. Again, that's PROTECT. Additionally, the bill increases the maximum number of highway miles Nevada may designate as critical rural freight corridors from 150 to 300 miles, and as critical urban freight corridor from 75 to 150 miles. It also provides additional flexibility for lower population density states to designate as critical rural freight corridors a maximum of 600 miles of highway, or 25% of the primary highway freight system mileage in that state, whichever is greater. The bill's formula-based funding dedicates percentages of funding to specific categories of projects and programs. With that bill now signed and into law, NDOT planning experts are closely evaluating these federally prescribed funding categories and are preparing to prioritize the funding to eligible projects in an equitable, data-driven manner that accounts for the needs of all transportation users. As we work through the bill, we will have more information in the coming months on the projects and programs that will be impacted and how the additional funding will be allocated. Sustainable Funding Study. Our Advisory Working Group, or AWG, on long-term sustainable transportation funding met last Tuesday. They finalized several principles that will help evaluate which funding approaches are the best fit for Nevada. These principles include criteria like financial sustainability, flexible use of the revenue, equity for the users of the transportation system and also social equity, and the revenue source can be aligned with the state's greenhouse gas reduction goals. During the meeting, the AWG also reviewed 2 transportation funding models as directed by the legislature. 1, Utah's new road usage charge, and 2, a concept proposed by the Natural Resources Defense Council that would apply different per-mile rates based on a vehicle's MPG. Both of these are pay-by-the-mile funding models. The Utah approach was passed by their legislature, and they're building their program now to collect a mileage fee from EV and hybrid drivers. The concept proposed by the Natural Resources Defense Council would apply different per-mile rates based on the efficiency of the vehicle that you drive. Through the study of the sustainable transportation funding, the AWG hopes to help identify new mechanisms that can provide long-term funding sustainability for transportation in Nevada and potentially serve as a model for other states working through similar challenges. The next AWG meeting is in January. Next, I'd like to give a few project updates. The first one here is the I-515 Viaduct project. As you're aware, we closed a southbound 515 off-ramp to Casino Center Drive on Sunday night. This closure will remain in effect until mid-December. When the ramp reopens, we will be closing the Las Vegas Boulevard off-ramp from southbound 515, and that closure will last till about mid-January. We recognize the inconvenience of closing these ramps during the holiday season, but the epoxy overlay that we are applying to these ramps needs cooler temperatures to set properly, and we don't want to come back next year and redo it. So this is a good timing to get that part of the project complete. We're also currently reconstructing the second phase of the Desert Inn Bridge, which has 3 phases for the demolition and replacement. Currently, Desert Inn under the 515 structure will be closed to motorists and pedestrians until Saturday morning. We appreciate the RTC's cooperation in getting pedestrians around these closures by offering free passes. In addition, we are continuing to work with Clark County School District to ensure students are getting to school timely. We recently began the reconstruction of phase 1 of 2 phases of the Eastern Avenue Bridge demolition and replacement. We will come back to pour the decking on this first phase in December and continue with the second phase after that. The overall project is scheduled to wrap up in the end of 2022. The next project update is our Downtown Access Project, located along I-15 US 95 from Mojave Road near Eastern Avenue to Rancho Drive. For this project, last spring, NDOT embarked on an extensive public awareness campaign, partially and then fully closing 8 streets proposed for permanent closure as part of the project. The effort allowed NDOT to receive communication directly from those most likely to be impacted by the closures, and it worked great. More than 450 residences and businesses in the area provided feedback. While many were not in favor of the street closures, the majority understood the need to improve the freeway. NDOT is very appreciative of those who took the time to represent their community and looks forward to more collaboration with adjacent neighborhoods as the project moves forward. As a result of this outreach campaign, along with the collection of additional traffic data, NDOT is excited to announce that the department is now proposing to close only 3 streets, 8th, 14th, and 16th in the above-ground south and north alternatives. And in the third recessed alternative, the department is now proposing to close only 4 streets, 8th, 14th, and 16th, like in the above-ground options, and also 19th Street. The reason 19th is proposed for closure is the recessed alternative is due to the transition of the freeway below grade. So it actually crosses over 19th Street as it's going into and out of the recessed proposal. The department is currently in the process of performing additional qualitative and quantitative research into the residents who will be most affected by this project to ensure we are doing everything we can to minimize or negate any impacts that, and ultimately deliver a project that will be beneficial for the surrounding community. This last project here I'd like to talk about is the I-15 Tropicana Reconstruction Project. Last week, the State Transportation Board of Directors approved the Tropicana Design Build Project. We are now in the contract administration phase and hope to start construction in late spring, early summer of 2022, with a substantial completion date targeted for 2024. As an overview refresher, here are some of the highlights of the project. Reconstruct the Tropicana interchange with an additional lane in each direction and maximize the number of turn lanes at the ramp terminals. Pedestrian access and connectivity will be enhanced with 10-foot sidewalks on both sides of Tropicana from Dean Martin to the west to about New York in the east. And there will also be access from Tropicana to each one of the quadrants, either through a stairwell or some kind of a pedestrian path. Construct HOV ramps on the south side of the Harmon overpass for a northbound HOV off-ramp and a southbound HOV on-ramp, which will provide additional access to the resort corridor. The signalized intersection at Dean Martin will be removed, and the access will be limited to right in and right out only. The Dean Martin northbound and southbound through movements will be moved to the east and go under the new Tropicana structure. I-15 will also be paved between Warm Springs Road and Hacienda Avenue. The existing active traffic management system installed as part of Project Neon will be expanded south of Tropicana to the I-15-215 system interchange with 10 new active traffic management gantries. This will be able to inform the morning commuters of upcoming conditions as they enter the resort corridor, or even to alert motorists when there's an event going on at Allegiant Stadium. The total construction cost for this project is estimated to be $305 million. We'll be working closely with all of our community and business stakeholders to ensure the project meets the needs of this critical corridor. With that concludes this month's director's report.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions or comments? Commissioner.
Thank you very much for the report. With regards to the infrastructure bill and freight transit, I just asked that NDOT, as I've communicated to Director Swallow, really look at the South I-15 corridor. Mayor Goodman has definitely raised the issue of getting tourists here from California. I think that's going to be very important, as there are projects in Sloan and Jean that are contemplated, supplemental airport, and a lot of work over the next few years that's going to go on in that corridor that's going to bring a lot of vehicle traffic, but also a lot of freight traffic. So definitely think we need to look at advancing the current deadlines for projects on South I-15.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. LaRue, for the report. Because the legislature acted to no longer fine or put penalty on jaywalking, having almost killed 3 people in the past week because I can't see them. They're usually in black and they're running across any intersection, especially up and down Sahara, where the lighting isn't quite as strong. Is there any way that NDOT, in its marketing can go ahead and remind everybody, if you're biking, you have to have reflective lighting on your bikes. I almost wiped somebody out last night who came from the I-15 underpass going west. Absolutely no indication to stop, no reflector. And then for people to wear an armband or something, I would ask that NDOT keep a record specifically of jaywalking accidents starting at the point the legislature stopped fining jaywalking. And so it's sort of like a carte blanche for anybody. You just go ahead and run across. There's nothing we're going to do about it, but I think it's going to absolutely affect the fatality rates. And then the other for bikes, and knowing that Commissioner Jones here is such an advocate to make sure that everybody's safe with the biking, but that is another area, and it's dark by 4:45. So I'd love NDOT to really put some funds into that, and as soon as possible, do more marketing, especially for the jaywalker. But give us the data, starting at the point that the legislature enacted that, please.
Thank you. I will bring that back to the team and get with our safety folks and our public information folks to make sure that we're working on that.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a request that I've been making about trying to focus on 515, I think it is, Sahara 95 interchange, figure out, get an interchange there and add a lane between probably Eastern and Desert Inn or Flamingo, because that's currently a huge problem and it's not going to go away. So if we're working on trying to get to California, let's focus on the people in the East Las Vegas too.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Ruud.
Thank you.
Thank you. MJ?
Thank you, Chairman. The next item is to approve your consent agenda, which consists of items 5 through 34, and can be taken in one motion.
Are there any items that anyone wants to pull off the agenda, the consent agenda? If not, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay, and that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. The next three items, that's agenda items 35, 36, and 37, are related to RTC's annual financial audits and can be heard together. So I'm going to hand it over to our CFO, Mark Trosdahl, to introduce the item.
Great, thank you, MJ. Our auditors, Crow LLP, certified public accountants, have finished their audits of the RTC's fiscal 2021 financial statements, grant reports, and fuel revenue indexing agreed upon procedures. Brad Shelley, a partner with Crow, will now give a report on the results of these audits that will cover agenda items 35, 36, and 37.
Thank you.
Commissioners, sorry. Brad Shelley, Crow LLP, partner for the record. Before I get started in providing an overview of the reports, just wanted to take a minute of time to express my appreciation and gratitude to management and the finance team for their significant efforts throughout the process. Preparing for an audit is not an easy or quick process and often requires additional time outside of the normal day-to-day responsibilities, so I really appreciate that. There are three reports to cover, and I think you have those. Again, agenda items, as Mark mentioned. We were engaged to audit the basic financial statements, perform agreed-upon procedures related to the fuel revenue index, and provide a single audit which covers the required audit of federal expenditures. So we'll start with the financial statement highlights. That is the spiral-bound document, if you have that. I won't go through everything, obviously, but did want to point out a few things. First thing to mention is, I think is always key, is management is responsible for the actual preparation of the financial statements. We, as an audit firm, an independent auditor, is responsible for providing an opinion on those financial statements. And so we do provide an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide. Essentially means it's a clean audit report. A few other items to point out. I know I've mentioned this, I think, in the past, but I think it's important just given the landscape. As you look at the public transit part of the organization, you have no debt. which provides for more flexibility, which I think is definitely something that is useful during this time, given the COVID situation. Another item to note, obviously you all are aware, you've received a good amount of federal funds through CARES, CRISA, and ARPA, but what we observed, was there was no compliance issues with that, and I'll get to that in a minute, but additionally, you were able to spend that down quicker than most of the peer agencies that we work with. And so I think that's important. Just from an operational standpoint, you were able to spend that almost entirely on operational expenses, which has allowed you to really make sure that you get those service levels back to the pre-pandemic levels. And that's something, we work with a lot of different transit agencies, and we're seeing many that aren't anywhere near that point at this time. And so I think by being able to use those dollars quickly, efficiently, and be able to get those service levels back, that's a very positive thing. And again, credit to management for taking that proactive approach. And then the last one is a little bit more operational, but many public transit agencies are having a hard time keeping or hiring operators. And I was just in a board meeting recently, and there were several public comments about that and how the service levels were down. And I think, again, the proactive nature of management and working with your PT contractors has allowed you to make sure that you have operators available and continue those services. So positive there. Moving on to the next item, the fuel revenue index results. There were no concerns or exceptions based on the procedures that we completed. All the FRI revenues were properly accounted for, and all the funds were only utilized on board-approved FRI projects. Then the last one is the black binding, which is the single audit. This is, again, your federal expenditures. There are two actual reports within there, the gas report and the uniform guidance report. Both had clean or unmodified opinions. No instances of non-compliance to note. There was one significant deficiency in internal controls that we identified, and this was related to the preparation of the schedule of federal expenditures, where there was about close to $12 million of revenue that was recognized initially in the current year and included on that schedule of federal awards that was related to a grant contract that didn't get executed until shortly after June 30. So the key thing to point out here, there's actually a couple things I wanted to point out. One, while it is a significant deficiency due to the significant dollar amount, this isn't I view this more as an isolated error or incident, and it's really just more of a timing issue. So this isn't an instance where you have significant controls, issues related to controls related to cash or investments or money going out the door. This is really just a financial reporting timing issue. Second thing to note here is that once we discussed with management, they immediately implemented a control to make sure that there's a review process in place so that it doesn't happen again. And then the last thing here, just there were no other findings, no other audit adjustments noted in any parts of the audit. The last thing I wanted to mention, and you may recall from the past, is that our firm works with a number of different transit agencies, Metro out in LA, all the way out to the East Coast and Washington, D.C., MARTA, several others. We also work with the state in different capacities, work with the auditors for the county, City of Las Vegas, the Aviation Authority, several other agencies within the state. And so really this combination of national public transportation experience and local government experience, I think allows us to really understand not only what is going on a local and regional level, but really allows us to have that broader view of what's happening in public transit across the country and bring some of those ideas and or concerns and share those with you all and with the management team. And I know one of the things I mentioned in the past that I think I've mentioned in the past anyways, is that RTC really stands out in comparison to peer agencies as it relates to efficiencies and process improvement. We talk about this a lot throughout the audit process, but all of that shapes some of the things I pointed out earlier, also serves well from an audit perspective. As I mentioned at the very beginning, the audit preparation was, again, very smooth by the finance team, and that really allows us to have a more efficient audit and spend less time, which in turn, obviously saves on fees that we're charging. So the last thing to point out is, along with the national view of public transit, your all's team, specifically in finance, continues to be leaders there. We do a virtual roundtable session on a every other month basis, and they have continued to share ideas and participate in those. Those typically have 20 to 30 different transit agencies participating across the country, and so it's a really good opportunity to share ideas and be able to network. And your all's team, again, is very active, and then I think that's a very positive thing, and I just wanted to mention that as well. So that covers everything I wanted to discuss. So thank you again for the time, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I would just like to thank you for a wonderful review, and certainly finding a deficiency, but then knowing that our agency took immediate corrective action and took care of that. I'm very proud of the work that our agency does provide to our community, and thank you for your leadership, MJ, and your team, Mark.
Thank you.
So with that, we have 3 items, but we've combined them, so what action do we need to take?
You can approve, I believe, all. Yeah, you can approve all 3 in one motion.
Okay, so what we're looking at is
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7. Can I have a motion to approve items 35, 36, and 37?
Motion to approve agenda items 35, 36, and 37.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay, and that motion carries. Thank you, MJ.
Chairman, if I may, the finance team, honestly, when you work in the public sector, it seems like, and we're in audit mode every day. And Mark Trosdahl and his team are really incredibly talented. Sherwin, if you and your team can stand up and be recognized for all your hard work, finance team. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much.
The next item, Agenda 38, we have no legal items to discuss, so we can move on to your last agenda item, which is your your last citizens' participation period.
Thank you. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to the board, now is your opportunity. Please come forward to the microphone, provide your comments, and state your name for the record. Do we have any public comments from the audience? Seeing no one. Additionally, with COVID-19 cases in Clark County, the RTC will temporarily be accepting public comment via email to be read aloud by staff onto the record. Are there any public comments to be read by staff?
Thank you, Chairwoman March. Mayor Dubois again for the record. We have 2 public comments this month. First, from Ms. Robin Kincaid. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robin Kincaid, and I have been testifying at the RTC meetings for the past 3 years. My daughter, Kayla, is a frequent paratransit user. I recognize the efforts to expand the service area and advocates for persons with disabilities see that as the first step in attempting to meet the transportation needs. Once again, the Las Vegas community is growing, and we need RTC to accommodate the growth within this community. It is still evident that RTC needs a process to look at the growth and meet the needs in the areas in the over age 55 communities and communities that have been established for decades and still do not have service. Please make this a priority to identify a process to expand the service area and publish the steps to the community that are necessary to accomplish this expansion. As I write this testimony, my daughter is once again waiting beyond the 30-minute window for her bus. As a family, we are experiencing frustration and need RTC to find a solution to these chronic delays. We are specifically hearing that the delays are more frequent for paratransit riders versus fixed route riders. This is another example of discriminatory delivery of services. I would also like to see the Commission have access to the number of complaints received and the RTC response to the complaint. Each RTC meeting should have a review of this complaint matrix, the response remedy back to the writer, and the time needed to respond to the complaint. This data can be used to improve services for paratransit riders. Thank you for your assistance and working towards solutions to make paratransit a system that works for persons with disabilities. And your second is from Ms. Stephanie Versnick. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Versnick. I am testifying before you for the 45th time. I testified for over 3.5 years asking to expand the service area. For the last 3 months, my home has been in the service area. My son is now brought home right to our front door. There has been a few long rides or a few minutes late outside of the 30-minute window, but for the most part, it has been pretty consistent and on time. As I previously stated, this has been one of the very few positive things that has happened in my son's life. He loves the independence of coming home and letting himself in. He is happier and feels more of a sense of independence. As a mom, my goal is for my son to be as independent as possible. Isn't that what all parents want for their children? In my opinion, transportation is a critical piece for people to live an independent life. For people with disabilities, public transportation is the piece that connects them to the employment, education, healthcare, and their social world and relationships. Without transportation, people with disabilities live their lives in isolation. We still have a lot of work to do. Many more people still don't have access to transportation. As a member of this community, and for the last 3 months, I have asked this board to begin working on a plan to give more people with disabilities, our seniors and veterans, access to transportation. The service area should be expanded more. Many new housing developments don't have access to transportation. In closing, I would like to thank this commission for reading public comment before going into the record. Hopefully this will continue. Since the beginning of the pandemic, our lives have changed. Our world is a different place. The way we used to live is so different today. We shop, work, and even socialize primarily in the virtual world. The pandemic continues to be a threat to all of us. People are still in quarantine. Many people, myself included, are not comfortable attending public meetings. I feel that the RTC commissioners needs to change the way things were done in the past. This is a new, different way of life that we are living in today. I think the virtual world is here to stay. The public's voice deserves to be heard. It's a sign of respect. It's asking very little and only takes approximately 2 minutes to read 500 words or less. In today's world, we can all respect each other a little more. And that concludes your comment period.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak?
Madam Chair, I just congratulate the staff. That's the first positive thing we've heard from her and since I've been here, so it's pretty impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, this meeting is adjourned.